especially to your stomachs. I'll have a pact with your stomachs. If you keep them under control for a little bit longer, I'll try to make my comments shorter so that you have a good lunch. Well, it's wonderful to be back amongst friends. Some of you I have not seen in a long time. Others I've at least spoken to you on the phone. And we've had a great run for many years, and I hope we still will for many more years. What I'd like to do is to share some very personal thoughts on this one proposition. And this is not promotion of American Airlines and all. But we know that one world requires human solidarity, of course. It requires a commitment to responsibility for each other, for our planet. And when we look at the climate change situation, we know very well that the air, the food, the water, the natural resources, the biodiversity are issues that we need to share and preserve. It requires global cooperation, as we heard from Professor Sen this morning. It requires, Richard, the giants that so well reminded us of and that many of us think of very frequently still today. They were people who were able to get those commitments into action, as you well pointed out to us. And it requires the contribution of women and men, and Khadija and I know that Manaz would also say that if she was asked. But I think first it requires, if we look at this north-south, that we deliver to the archives the abject poverty of the world, and that we do it faster than we have been doing it so far. MDGs have been great. I know that many of us back in the early 90s, all these summits, are they going to be lost? Look at all these recommendations. They cannot. And you know, many people were involved, but then the UN, through the General Assembly, took the lead, and this was wonderful. And we need to meet those. We're already, but the number of countries will not, certainly on a certain number of indicators. Yet they are still so important. But in looking at sort of the future, we know that even with the MDGs having been met with their work, it still leaves us with a very shaky world. In terms of such factors, of course, as we have heard this morning, wealth distribution, access to the essence of life, and you know, when injustice is at the door, when human rights are trampled, when hunger, of course, and death, as we know, is prevalent, different people react differently. And we have seen how some get off the train of life and wither away. We have seen how some are so courageous in doing so much with so little, and on trying to move to a better situation for their community and themselves. And we also know that some have deep anger and frustration. And that is where one aspect, I think, of our life and look at the future can be very difficult, and that is with the youth under 25. And I haven't seen the report in the 24 hours, but we're probably still around 1 billion world who are below 25 years old. And you know, beyond this being a very explosive situation, if these young people are not given the chance to learn, to contribute, it is such a destructive use of our human capital and of and a tremendous loss of extraordinary energy. So I would like to give very selected pieces that I would like to raise this morning. One of them, I go back to the Millennium Development Goals. I think we should have immediately the next generation being planned in a very bold way of what will follow, because what will follow needs to start now. And we know that the MDGs is a fairly low standard. It's only part population, and it's only a certain number of individuals, and a percentage, as I mentioned before. So my first proposition is that we need immediately, in terms of between North and South, this new generation of a better future. My second thought goes back to Mahbub, and the fact that we need today, again, more than ever, the right indicators to determine the well-being of nations. And this was a break when the Human Development Report came. And of course, this morning we heard how this Human Development Report has had children around the world, starting with the Asia Development Report and many others that have come about. But when we look today when we look at our television, no matter how we switch, these international stations keep feeding us with economic trade, with how the stock market is doing. I would like to suggest that one day we're able to have some channels who provide us on a regular basis how we are doing on human development based on very visual indicators. But this is why we need to be so grateful to Mahbub and to people who worked with him, Khadija, who I'm sure must have pushed him many days in this direction. So we need to mainstream the human report as well. A third point that I'd like to leave with you, I go back to my point about the 1 billion youth. The fact that the world community together say we need to have all children in primary school and then in secondary school, we need to have universal free access, and all the children of the world have to be there. Absolutely. But I think so along the way, we might have also neglected how do they continue. And I think that unless we also have a much better capacity to support the young people of the world to be able to continue their development, technically, university, college, in a variety of ways, we are again wasting that capacity and creating the sort of thing that you were talking about earlier. And there are